Of our Lady Macbeth analysis. As I said a moment ago in another video I just recorded, this is what I do on bank holidays. I'm going to do some correcting as well in a while. The mind maps are designed to help you revise the play in an efficient way. I think if you knew what was on the mind maps, you'd know more than most students going into the Leaving Cert in any given year. But of course, your preparation for your exam has to take into account your broader reading and understanding of the play, as well as your analysis of particular questions and your essay writing skills. But anyway, that's the waiver. So I'm just going to pick up and off we go. So we know that Lady Macbeth has a huge impact on the beginning of the play. I'm not sure she dominates the start of the play. I think the witches have a huge role. I think Macbeth's own character, the battle, the violence of the beginning of the play, Duncan's role. There's loads of things that make that opening act one of the great sequences of 5 scenes in all of drama, if I can be a little bit pretentious and verge into my usual hyperbole. But what we want to do is get into now how Lady Macbeth changes in the play. So as I said in the last video, she goes through this unbelievable change. So we know from the beginning that she's powerful and she's highly intelligent, and that she, like, one of her roles, her dramatic purpose is to allow us to learn more about him. So when she says that he fears that his nature is too full of the milk of human kindness, that's surprising to us as an audience when she says it in Act 1, Scene 5, because up to that point all he's been is really, really strong. So we're surprised to hear this observation about his weakness from the person who knows him best. And what she realizes is that he is an egoist. What she communicates through her behavior is that he's an egoist, and in order to influence him, she plays on that ego. Now, I think that's really important. Macbeth is, I had an argument, not an argument, but I was chastised many years ago by a colleague, a good guy, with, not criticising him at all, but English is one of those subjects where you do get strong opinions. I called Macbeth a narcissist, and for me there's a lot of narcissism in Macbeth. I think there's a lot of evidence in the play. But anyway, let's just say that's too far. But he certainly is a man driven by ego. And she recognises that. And that she plays on that to, as far as don't forget, she doesn't make him kill the king. She helps him do it. That's a crucial thing you need to understand about her. She is a very strong woman, but she derives her identity as a strong woman from her relationship with this strong man. And she sees that he has this chasm inside him which can only be filled by the crown. And that's what she wants. That's what she's driven by. She's driven by that, and by, of course, if he's king, she's queen, that her own personal ambition. So when she speaks to him in the quotes I'm going to look at now in a minute, a lot of people think, she's being mean to him. She's not being mean to him. She's being, as far as she's concerned, this is love. So he says, we shall proceed no further in this business. And we have to be very skeptical about his sincerity there. What he's doing is reaching out to her and he's saying, will we not do this? He's looking for her response, and her response is fierce. She asks him, are you afraid? Art thou afraid? To be the same in thine own act and valour as thou art in desire? Would thou have that which thou esteemest the ornament of life, and live a coward in your own esteem, thine own esteem? Look at the language. Afraid, coward. She's reminding him that he's meant to be brave, valour. There's this thing that you think will excuse the pun, crown your existence, and you're too afraid to go and take it. So she knows that he prides himself on being unafraid. She knows that he prides himself on being brave. So that's why she uses that language. You have to understand that. She's not using that language because she's trying to hurt him. She's using that language because she's trying to, as far as she's concerned, help him. And that's why, his resistance to her influence is minimal. It's tissue thin. He said, well, okay, will we? And she says, yeah. He says, what if we fail? And she says, well, screw your courage to the sticking place and we'll not fail. She sees the short term all the time. Just let's do this. And whatever happens after that happens after. Let's do it now. And of course that gives him that sense of security that he's looking for, especially when she says, "What cannot you and I perform upon the young guard of Duncan? What not put upon his spongy officers, who shall bear the guilt of our great quell?" Two brilliant quotes from Lady Macbeth, illustrating, by the way, her utter corruption and why she completely deserves the fate that she, that awaits her at the end of the play. Like remember that word I used, salacious, Salacious. Her mouth is watering at the idea of killing the king. There's no hesitation. And then there's no moral, or ethical boundary to her behaviour. She's happy to, put the blame on these innocent guys, knowing that they'll be slaughtered and their families will suffer. And she's cruel. There is no doubt about that whatsoever. But what she's doing there, she's facilitating him. And what she's doing there is she's being, as far as she's concerned, and he certainly feels it, she's being the strong wife he needs at that moment. So it's illustrative of not only her corruption, but the closeness of their relationship. Remember, I've told you a million times, if you say she makes him kill the king, very rarely in English will I say this, but you're just wrong. She helps him. She facilitates him. But he doesn't have to do it. He has free will. Just the same point I made with the witches. He chooses to do it because he wants to, and therefore must bear the weight of the responsibility for what happens. Don't forget, her role in the night of the regicide is very important. She who drugs the guards, she drugs their possets. Posset is it's like a milk and alcohol drink. The milk is mixed in with alcohol. It's a kind of a nightcap type thing. She drugs their possets. She rings the bell to tell them that they're drugged. She says she could never kill Duncan, so if it's left up to her, Duncan doesn't die. And the extent of her influence over Macbeth is very clearly illustrated when she tells him to bring the daggers back and he won't do it, and she has to do it herself. So he is malleable to the extent that she can kind of influence him to do things he already wants to do. But when she tries to influence him to do things he doesn't want to do, she can't. And there's loads of evidence for that in the play. So again, it shows how this idea that she's this kind of evil mastermind that can, pull his strings and manipulate him. She does manipulate him. She does influence him. But again, it's more subtle than that. He's not some weak, mindless fool. He's a strong man who is driven by his ambition and who, when offered her reassurance and help, takes it because it helps him achieve his goal. Really important quotes. "The doors are open and the surfeited guards do mock their charge with snores. I have drugged their possets." There she is, confessing to the audience her guilt, her culpability, her role in a regicide. She's going to hell. Then, very importantly, "Had he not resembled my father as he slept, I had done it." And again, there's that brilliant Shakespearean juxtaposition where we think, and the first quote shows, "Oh, she's evil." The second quote shows, "Oh, she's human too." So the subtlety, the complexity of the characterization. She calls him infirm of purpose, weak. Up here she called him weak, and he went and killed the king. Here she calls him weak, but he won't bring the daggers back. So the techniques that she uses are only effective to the extent of his desire to do whatever it is that she's talking about. Okay. Okay. So let's get finished now. Okay. So her role in the play diminishes as soon as he becomes king. Yes, she is there in Act 3 when he's king, and she expresses her sense of regret, because not at killing the king, but at the impact the killing of the king has had on her husband. "Naught's had, all spent, where our desire is got without content" is a great quote, isn't it? It's a great quote. That's the first time we see her being weak, being vulnerable. She's done it. They've done it all and it's for what? For nothing. They're not content. She tries to reassure her husband when he says, "Full of scorpions is my mind." And she says, "These deeds must not be taught after these ways, so it will make us mad." And there's a great example of Shakespeare's use of foreshadowing. And fundamentally, there's a cut-off moment in their relationship when he's plotting the murder of Fleance and Banquo with the assassins. They leave. She comes in. She says, "What's going on?" "I know something's going on." He says, "Be innocent of the knowledge, dearest Chuck." And that's your key moment of change for her in the play. In Act 1, she was dearest partner in greatness. Now she's dearest Chuck. That juxtaposition again, that contrast, that clever use of language by Shakespeare is illustrative of her changed status in his eyes. Now she's of no importance. Now she's trivial. Now she's, to be addressed using patronising language, little chicken. And this is an extraordinary way for him to talk to her. But because she is of no use to him now, she can't help him, deal with these problems that he has. She's dismissed. And that's where, despite all of her cruelty and despite all of her conscious malevolence, there's still a little bit of sympathy for her in the play. And that's Shakespeare's genius, showing her as a human being. So then, all the way through Act 4, she doesn't feature at all. She's a very peripheral figure in Act 3. She is there in the scene when the ghost, in Act 3, Scene 4, when the ghost appears, but again, in a peripheral way. It's all about him, it's all about the ghost. And then we see her at the end of Act 5, at the beginning of Act 5, and she's a woman transformed. She's the symbolism of the fact that she walks on stage in her night attire, very important. She's vulnerable, she's sleepwalking, she has no rest, she's tortured by conscience, that thing she thought she had the power to just switch off, to block up or stop up the access and passage to remorse. No, she wasn't that strong. That was a huge mistake that she made. And we see her, out, damn that spot, out, I say. And again, that quote, by the way, earlier on I made a short and I said out, damn that spot. Of course, that's wrong. Out is out, brief candle by Macbeth. But out, damn that spot, out, I say. That she said, didn't she, earlier on in the play, a little water clears us of this deed, how easy is it then? She was flippant and dismissive of the consequences of what they've done. Now she's paying the price. She overestimated her power to ignore conscience. So she's being tortured by conscience. She's having nightmares about the king's death. Yet who would have thought the old man to have had so much blood in him? And she's being tortured by what Macbeth has done since he's become king. The Thane of Fife had a wife. Where is she now? Macbeth slaughtered the Thane of Fife. That's Macduff's family. She had nothing to do with that. Why is she having a nightmare about it? She facilitated it by helping him seize the crown. So she bears responsibility. She ultimately dies by suicide. We're told at the end of the play that she, by self and violent hands, took off her life. You'll get some teachers nitpicking about that. Well, it's not quite sure. We hear that's a report, but we're not quite sure. Look, she does. She dies by suicide. That's for all intents and purposes. And when she dies, the great irony is that the man that she was so in love with, the man that she was so devoted to, the man that she believed was her partner, doesn't care. And his response, as I've said many times to you in class, is nonchalant. She should have died hereafter. Lady Macbeth she's a morality tale. She's a powerful, beautifully, brilliantly drawn character, a representation of female power in Shakespeare. But ultimately, like her husband, she is a cipher, a symbol, a warning for how there are consequences when, as human beings, we choose the wrong path, when we choose to put our interests above the welfare of others. That's her tragedy. She didn't understand that, and she ends broken and alone.